their runways in periculously, mischief-free, and civilly. Number one, China's improved air power projection capability over the entire South China Sea will vastly improve. Number two, it will enhance their air superiority over the South China Sea. Number three, it will improve their anti-access, area denial capabilities against U.S. military presence and its intervention during contingencies. Like to go back to the map. You know, anti-access, area denial means that you are preventing a very powerful unit from entering your area using maybe small weapons. Like for example, even if I have only an air rifle, I can prevent people from entering an area because they will not want to be hit by an air rifle or even a slingshot. So what they're planning to do is use this to prevent the US Navy from deploying the aircraft carrier within maybe about 1,000 to 2,000 kilometers from this area, and that will limit their ability to maneuver. Possible declaration of the South China Sea Air Defense Identification Zone in the future. And if that happens, that will complicate our situation because we are the closest to that area. Every time the Philippine Airlines would fly from Naiya to, let's say, Bangkok, to Vietnam, to Singapore, we would be flying over that air defense identification zone to be installed by China. Environmental and food security, wanton destruction of the environment. This is already exhaustively 300 million people are dependent on the marine resources in the South China Sea for their livelihood. And quoting the same expert, McManus, this is the quickest rate of permanent loss of coral reef area in human history. Human history. And if you talk human history, that's about 10,000 years of civilized society. And this will affect food stocks because the South China Sea accounts for 10% of the global fish stocks of the world. 10%. What is 10%? It's like not eating for one day over a 10-day period. That is how the impact will be. Now, Vietnam submarines it was announced that Vietnamese submarines have been deployed already. Maybe one or two have been deployed already as deterrent to China. And I'd like to repeat my earlier analysis. Vietnam has a smaller economy than the Philippines, but Vietnam is able to allocate more resources for its security because they understand better the critical importance of security in their economic development. They understand that security is an integral component of national development in the same way that security is an integral component of any business. You cannot imagine a business establishment, for example, without security. You can imagine a building like this without security. You can imagine oil exploration or mining exploration without security. Vietnam understands that. That's why they have correctly allocated billions of dollars for the defense and security in the face of a very aggressive China without sacrificing the economy. Some people are saying that if you invest too much in defense, you might sacrifice the economy. But Vietnam has shown that there's a vibrant economy. It is attracting more foreign investments in the Philippines, maybe about 4 to 5 times more. And at the same time, has a powerful defense force that enables the nation to punch way above its weight class. They're able to balance security and economic development at the same time. The Brits have entered the picture also because they announced that Royal Air Force jets may head for Japan as UK seeks Asia's influence. They want to deploy their fighter planes and also to become part of the coalition. Now, of course, the most recent economic development is the Supreme Court clearing the way for a bigger U.S. military role, and that is EDCA. And how did I react to this announcement? I posted this: EDCA will be a game changer in the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific region. Not only Asia-Pacific, but Indo-Pacific, including the Indian Ocean and all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And this will be in the interest of the Philippines, not just in the interest of the U.S., but in the interest of the Philippines. And the U.S. will push Chinese harder on territorial claims. This is announced by the Pacific Command. They'll keep on challenging Chinese claims in the South China Sea, and they announced that this is going to increase and grow in frequency, complexity, and scope. And I can understand the terms used by Admiral Harris when you say increase in frequency, that's quite obvious. Complexity, meaning that they're going to use more complex weapon systems, and they started to demonstrate that. And scope, meaning the geography that will be covered. And they show that immediately. The U.S., by analysis, the U.S. Navy will find it easier to push back with EDCA in place. And if the U.S. Navy will push back China, we are going to be a major beneficiary. That's quite obvious. Another development that is complicating the situation in China today is the election of a new Taiwan president, President-elect Chai, because President-elect Chai, called for freedom of navigation in the disputed South China Sea, using the buzzword being used by the United States, by Japan, by the rest of the civilized world, and for a peaceful resolution of the dispute. And this is going to be very complicated for China. Taiwan will continue to strengthen the island's ties with Japan. And we all know that China and Japan are like cats and dogs in this area. Now we're talking of the EDCA naval base in Palawan, maybe under naval and military bases in the Visayas, in Mindanao, in certain parts of Luzon. Japan has shifted the Air Force posture towards the south, closer to the East China Sea. What are the more recent developments? Of course, a new U.S. sailed by. And in this particular case, this was quite a big surprise to many, including myself, because I was expecting that the next move would remain in the southern part of the South China Sea, this practice area, maybe one with artificial islands. But instead of that, they opted to make that sail-by in the Triton Island area, in the Paracels up north, about 200 miles from this practice. And to me, this is in keeping with the early statement that they're going to increase their patrols, their operations in scope, in complexity, and in intensity. So in terms of scope, they went up north, closer to home as far as China is concerned. Of course, China condemned this patrol by this U.S. ship near in the Paracel area. My analysis, this new U.S. Navy action appears to be in accordance with the new announcement of Admiral Harris, Commander of Pacific Command. The U.S. action in the South China Sea will increase in complexity and scope. It has become very complex for them and more complex as far as China is concerned. This is again good for Philippine security, a strong counterbalance against China's aggressiveness. And one other development is the impending U.S. Navy deployment of a high-tech destroyer in the Pacific area. And this is what the U.S. Navy calls the Batman ship, because it is high-tech. This is the new ship, Zumba, a 10,000 ton guided missile destroyer, the Zumwalt class destroyer, high-tech, very stealthy. It is touted to have the capability to approach the city without being detected, and can be a one-man wrecking crew because of the very sophisticated and deadly weapon system. The Zumwalt, the Batman ship, is touted as a one-man wrecking crew. It will be stationed in the Asia-Pacific area, and it has the potential of altering the balance of power in the region. And surprise of all surprises, imagine, this is what you call, even in politics, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. Vietnam had a 10-year war with the United States, but now Vietnam is calling on the U.S. to play a greater role in the South China Sea. Australia followed suit by issuing a warning again against China intimidating neighbors. And the South China Sea runway sparked warning from the U.S. And of course, now we have the U.S.-ASEAN summit, a very dramatic development. President Obama leading the way and succeeding in having a statement, a joint statement issued by the United States and the ASEAN countries, including our own president. And I'll mention the specific, what is my analysis here? The Sunnylands Agreement is a historic event as it cements an ASEAN bond against the use of force. For the first time, an ASEAN bond. It is a strong signal to China to adhere to the rule of law, especially UNCLOS in relation to its 9-dash line claim. The most important implication of the Sunnylands Agreement is on the imminent ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Philippine case against China. Should the Philippines win, we can expect support from ASEAN to honor the ruling and scatter its 9-dash line fiction. It is a tacit expression of support for any legal means to persuade China to adhere to the rule of law. This includes freedom of navigation, patrols by the U.S. Navy, and other navies of the world. The U.S.-ASEAN Accord is the result of China's over-aggressiveness that is now backfiring on itself. And the joint statement, I'd like to quote in particular 2 paragraphs of the joint statement. Number 6, firm adherence to a rules-based regional and international order that upholds and protects the rights and privileges of all states. Paragraph 7, shared commitment to peaceful resolution of disputes, including full respect for legal and diplomatic processes, that means the PCA, without resorting to the threat or use of force in accordance with the universally recognized principles of international law and the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. But this was followed immediately by a response from China. China's missile deployment in the South China Sea. It made the front pages, it made the headlines. A leftist group announced that it's an act of war, a statement that I find rather strange. And the headline said, China just upped the stakes in the South China Sea. But what happened here is that the deployment is not in this practice area. It is not in one of the artificial islands that they constructed. It is all the way up north, about 200 miles from this practice area, and about 400 miles from Palawan. In Woody Island, in the Paracels area, Darkan Island, in that area. And as already correctly mentioned by Justice Carpio, you're not talking of a long range here, only about 200 kilometers. It is no threat to the Philippines because I don't think we have any air assets that intend to fly over the Paracel area, not in the foreseeable future. But it will be a threat to the air patrols being conducted by the U.S. Navy. And what is my Australia, New Zealand urged China to show restraint as a response to this deployment of missiles. India also talked about peace and security in the South China Sea, again referring also to the surface-to-air missiles deployed by China. What is my take here, my analysis? In the South China Sea situation, it is very important that the Philippines strengthen our security and economic engagement with India. I'm referring to India's statement about the missile deployment, because I consider India not only as a good economic partner, but also as a very effective strategic partner. As shown by the response of the US, Australia, and India, it now appears that the world is righteously ganging up on China. They're ganging up on China. And here are my comments on the report that China installed a battery of HQ-9 missiles in the Paracels. This appears to be an escalation of the militarization game in the South China Sea. It is meant to deter intrusion by US planes into the airspace of the Paracels. It is around, by the way, the Paracels had been occupied by China for about 40 years already, and it is the site of their headquarters of Sanxia City, which is their local government to supervise the South China Sea. It is around 200 nautical miles from the